So I want to pick up our conversation about Tulsi Gabbard that we started yesterday, but really this is now becoming a much bigger story. And one of the things I'm going to show you in a bit is the Ukrainian biolabs people that now are fixated on the Ukrainian biolabs story that's being promulgated by, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald, Tulsi Gabbard, the usual suspects. These are folks who have sort of their shiny new object instead of COVID anti-vax has shifted to become Ukrainian biolabs. It's the same people. They're just now paying attention to something else. So something really funny has happened. Tulsi Gabbard is now suggesting that Senator Mitt Romney resign. And the idea there is that anybody cares what Tulsi Gabbard thinks about who should resign. That's hilarious. And all of this is centered around Tulsi Gabbard repeating known longtime Russian propaganda talking points about Ukrainian biolabs. So just as a reminder, here's the clip that started it all.
Here are the undeniable facts. There are 25 to 30 U.S. funded biolabs in Ukraine. According to the U.S. government, these biolabs are conducting research on dangerous pathogens. Ukraine is in an active war zone with widespread bombing, artillery, and shelling, and these facilities, even in the best of circumstances, could easily be compromised and release these deadly pathogens. Now, like COVID, these pathogens know no borders. If they are inadvertently or purposely breached or compromised, they will quickly spread all throughout Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world, causing untold suffering and death. So in order to protect the American people, the people of Europe, the people around the world, these labs need to be shut down immediately, and the pathogens that they hold need to be destroyed. Instead of trying to cover this up, the Biden-Harris administration needs to work with Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the UN to immediately implement a ceasefire for all military action in the vicinity of these labs until they're secured and these pathogens are destroyed.
Now, understand that with all of these things, they have kernels of truth. Like, for example, are there laboratories in Ukraine? Yes, there are laboratories in Ukraine that research pathogens and bioweapon defense. They're not developing bioweapons, but they're researching pathogens and bioweapons defense. And also in many other European countries and in other parts of the world. So that's not untrue. Is it true that the U.S. through the DOD is part of a consortium that is supporting the research being done in a variety of these labs around the world? Yes, that's true, but there's nothing pernicious about it. Would the existence of such a lab in Ukraine in any way justify Russia's invasion? No, of course not. Are these the US's labs to order shut down? No, they're not. And so where this gets into propaganda territory is that some of the kernels that are there aren't untrue in a literal sense, but it's being packaged as a way to provide cover for talking about things other than the completely outrageous Russian invasion of Ukraine. And specifically, this is why this Russian talking point has been a talking point about Ukrainian biolabs for so long. Now, Mitt Romney wasn't having it. Republican Senator Mitt Romney tweeted, "Tulsi Gabbard is parroting false Russian propaganda. Her treasonous lies may cost lives." Well, we've also since learned that Tulsi didn't like this, and Tulsi started demanding that Mitt Romney resign. And the idea that anybody would care what Tulsi Gabbard thinks at this point is genuinely hilarious. Tulsi doubled down on Twitter, and she said maybe Romney needs to resign, tweeting, quote, "Mitt Romney, you have called me a treasonous liar for stating the fact that there are 25 U.S. funded biolabs in Ukraine, which, if breached, would release and spread deadly pathogens to the U.S. and the world, and therefore must be secured in order to prevent new pandemics." Now, Romney didn't say that she's a traitor because she said that that's what's going on. And it's not clear that there are more than 25 in Ukraine. That's actually a question mark. And they could spread if they were breached, but we don't know that to be true. But she went on to say, you claim that securing these labs is treasonous. No, he didn't say that securing the labs is treasonous. She said the spread of pathogens is what will cause the loss of life, not the prevention of such spread. And then says, Senator Romney, please provide evidence that what I said is untrue and treasonous. If you cannot, you should do the honorable thing, apologize and resign from the Senate. Now, of course, Mitt Romney was saying that her parroting of Russian propaganda is what's treasonous. Now, do I think it's literally treasonous? No, it's almost certainly not. And Mitt Romney was using hyperbole. But the idea that Tulsi is going to call for the resignation of Mitt Romney is just hilarious. So the important things to keep in mind about this story, because a week ago, I would have said this is not going to go anywhere. And now this story is everywhere and all the usual suspects have seized on it. The substance of the story itself, we went over in detail yesterday in 2 segments. I don't want to do it all again since, how many times am I going to do that in 1 week? It's overall a really great example of Russell's teapot. Russell's teapot is this idea that Bertrand Russell came up with, which illustrates the issue of burden of proof. And in particular, burden of proof when people make unfalsifiable claims rather than shifting the burden of disproof to others. And the way Bertrand Russell talked about it was in the context of religion. He wrote, if someone says, okay, there's a teapot orbiting the sun, or, orbiting the sun somewhere between Earth and Mars, and it's too small to be seen. You wouldn't expect that anybody would believe that just because they can't disprove that there's this tiny teapot. If he says there's this tiny teapot and it's too small to be seen and too small to be detected, it's very hard to disprove that. But that doesn't mean we just assume that it's true that there is such a teapot. And this entire thing is based on proof. The U.S. is perniciously funding biolabs, bioweapons labs, and there's something dangerous going on or whatever. Well, we don't actually have proof of that. We just have, all we know is there are labs all over the world and they research pathogens and they research how to defend against a bioweapons attack. No. But it's the pernicious nature of these is being covered up. Well, so then how would we know one way or the other? Well, it's up to you to prove that it's not going on. How do you prove something's not going on? We just don't have evidence that it is going on. It's similar to the invisible tiger example I've used before, which is, hey, in my studio right here, there's an invisible tiger. Really? But I can't see it. No, but it's invisible. Okay, well, it's invisible, but it still has weight, right? So if we put talcum powder down on the floor, we should be able to see the tiger disturb the talcum powder as it walks around. No, because it's a weightless, invisible tiger. Oh, okay. All right. Well, but I'm sure then that if we open the door and put a little bit of cellophane and then take the oxygen out, the tiger will try to leave the room and we'll see it press up against the cellophane, right? We'll see the No, because it's an invisible, weightless tiger that has the ability to go through the cellophane. It's endless. It's a bottomless pit. And we need to understand that not only are these claims essentially unfalsifiable to the people making them, these are also much the same people who were doing the anti-vax. They've just found a shiny new object. Here's Ben Collins from NBC explaining this.
Let's talk about, it reminds us of the theories that COVID-19 was deliberately started in a lab and spread out. Does this start and live in those kinds of places?
Yeah, that account on Gab was an anti-vax account. That's the remaining legacy of the anti-vax spaces on the internet. They are conforming to be part of the broader global far right to push these conspiracy theories against the Bidens, against Anthony Fauci, and against what they would call like the medical establishment all throughout the world. The global far right has coalesced around that. And it's worked for Russia, too. And in fact, the TASS, the Russian news agency, they didn't post anything about biological weapons attacks that were created in Ukraine in the run-up, in the 1 month before the invasion in Ukraine. But on Thursday and Friday, they posted 24 separate articles about what they called biological weapons in Ukraine. This
is a long time story being that has come out of Russia in the past, and now others are helping to push it. So that starts with Tulsi Gabbard. Next, we'll talk about Madison Cawthorn. One of our longtime sponsors is Vincero Collective. If you don't know Vincero yet, it's the place to go for quality watches, sunglasses, and more. Serious style, undeniable quality, and total versatility put Vincero really at the top of the game, and their newest watch release is no exception. It's the Argo Automatic. It spotlights everything I love about Vincero. I got the Argo Automatic in frost white. This is a dive watch, which is, of course, a staple in the watch world, but I really think Vincero found a way to make this one stand out. I love the gradient blue accent of the hour markers against the solid white face. I really love all of their watches, and I own a bunch, but the Argo is probably my favorite so far. Vincero sunglasses and jewelry and other accessories are awesome too. An excellent way to elevate any outfit. Vincero Collective is giving my audience 15% off all products and free shipping. Go to vincerocollective.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. The link is down below.